Our next case is 50 Cherry Hill Road, which is the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Princeton, and it carries the case number Z1616367MS. And I will ask Mr. Bridger, as before, to read the essence of his memorandum to the board and explain the case, and then I'll get you to make a presentation.
Good evening. This is an application of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Princeton. They are seeking a minor site plan. It's an expansion of a conditional use with a floor area ratio. Variance to permit the construction of a small addition over existing first floor, which is this area in here, and then a new entrance vestibule, this area out here. Subject property is the home of the 22,476 square foot Universalist Congregation Church. Lower level features classrooms, office use, while the upper floor is comprised of worship areas, theater, and a kitchen. Property situated on a 4-acre lot. It's located in the R2 residential zone. Existing site improvements include 141 space parking lot, fenced area around a child care yard. The site slopes to the mountain brook along the northeast barrier or boundary. Subject property is bound to the north by Cherry Hill Road, to the east by Route 206, and to the west by Princeton Community Park North. Adjacent land uses are mainly residential houses on larger lots, preserved open space parklands, and there's small retail office use on Route 206. The applicant's proposing to construct a new 700 square foot entrance and vestibule to replace the existing, and in the interior there's a 301 square foot addition which will contain an elevator and stairs, and that's over an existing first floor area in the courtyard in the middle of the building. The applicant is renovating the interior of the structure to improve ADA compliance, make the building more energy efficient. Current restrooms will be replaced with ADA compliant facilities. Aside from the new entry and the addition over an existing floor area, there are no site changes proposed. As I indicated earlier, the property is located in the R2 zoning district, and the existing church is a permitted conditional use in accordance with section 10B 272.31 of the former Princeton Township Land Use Ordinance. This section requires that in order for a new or expansion of existing place of worship to be approved as a conditional use, the place of worship must have its primary vehicular access from an arterial or major collector or minor collector. The master plan identifies Cherry Hill Road as a major collector. Pursuant to section 10B 272.30, the conditional use standards set forth in section 321 apply. The only variance sought here is a floor area variance. The R2 zone has a maximum floor area limit of 12.5. The existing FAR is 12.9, which is 22,477 square feet. The two additions will increase the FAR to 13.5, or 23,522. While technically a D variance, Cox Land Use Law notes that the applicant shall demonstrate that the site can accommodate the problems associated with the increased floor area, and not that the site is particularly suited for more intensive development. No variance or other relief may be granted under the terms of this section unless such variance or relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. The following items should be considered when reviewing the use variance. The burden of proof: the applicant has a burden of demonstrating special reasons for granting the variance, as well as the negative criteria. You're familiar with special reasons. They may be found where the proposed use inherently serves a public good and where the owner would suffer undue hardship if required to use the property in compliance with the permitted uses in the zone, or where the use would serve the general welfare because the proposed site is particularly suited to the proposed use. We did ask SPRAB, the Site Plan Review Advisory Board, if they wanted to review the application. They felt that since there were no site plan issues associated other than the two additions, that they didn't feel a review by that board was necessary. I'm just going to go over a few items here. It slightly increases the stormwater drainage by 522 square feet. The drainage patterns will remain the same. Jack West did review the application, the land use engineer, and he didn't really have any issues with the stormwater. There's one issue with the site plan. Notes that the utility services, there are no change proposed. However, sheet 3, which was a revision, shows that both the underground electric and underground gas are labeled as areas of disturbance, and I'll let the applicant explain a little bit more about what this means. We do suggest, in terms of noise, that the close proximity to the existing residents, that the start time be at 8 o'clock versus 7 o'clock. We'd ask the applicant to consider that. They will need to get the applicable permits from New Jersey State Department of Environmental Protection. The property is located within a 300-foot riparian buffer of the Mountain Brook, and that approval would be required before any approval of the building plans or the site plan. They've requested waivers for the fire protection plan due to the limited scope of the additions. The property is not located in a historic preservation zone, so that waiver is not necessary. The existing lightage is there. They've requested a waiver to show the photometrics for that because they're saying that that's not available for the older light fixtures, and they were requesting a tree survey variance. The only concern we have about trees is if the electric and gas do need to be rerouted, that we would ask that the applicant work with the land use engineer and the arborist to avoid any trees or any damage to the existing trees out there. And that's a snapshot of the application. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Bridger, I should have noted before you begin your testimony that the noticing is in order and the board has jurisdiction to hear it, so I'll note that now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bridger. I assume we don't have any questions from Mr. Bridger?
No questions, Mr. Chairman, but fellow board members, I'm going to recuse myself. I'm a member of the UU church, okay? So I will step aside.
So you can sit in the audience and see how bad we look from there.
Well, okay, or I'll sit here and just not vote.
Okay.
I need to make
You want me to?
Yeah. Okay. Your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Christopher DeGrazia from the law firm of Drinker, Biddle, and Reith, here on behalf of the applicant, Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Princeton. The application before you is for a minor site plan, as Mr. Bridger pointed out, and for a floor area ratio variance. The applicant is a nonprofit religious institution that has served Princeton community and the surrounding community for many, many years. Its building is located at 50 Cherry Hill Road, and it was built probably in 1950s, 1960s, and at that time, ADA compliance wasn't really a priority. And that's really why we're here this evening. It's twofold. One, to improve ADA compliance, and two, to make the building more energy efficient. And as Derek said, there are two areas where we are making modifications to the building. I'd like to just point them out briefly. One is in the center of the building, there is a courtyard. Oops, and I'm pointing it at me. It's hard to see, but this is the area that's going to be improved, and there's a courtyard. Very hard for me to see on that plan. Okay. Oh, yeah, there's an existing courtyard. We are not going into the courtyard at all. Next to the courtyard, there is a one-story section of the building. Most of the building is 2 stories, but there's a small one-story section. We are going to build on top of that one-story section, and the purpose of that is to put in an ADA-compliant elevator. So we will have an elevator there and a staircase. That is about a 301 square foot addition to floor area. So that's the first area where we're going to propose some changes. The second area proposed changes is right off of the parking lot, the large parking lot and the main entrance. So when you come from the parking lot, you walk down the sidewalk to the main entrance, you basically open the door and you're in the building. There's no vestibule or entrance vestibule. So hot air, you lose hot air, you lose air conditioning. What we would like to do in that area is create an entry vestibule. Will help improve energy efficiency. We also like to put a very small porch so that people walking up to the entrance will have shelter from rain and snow and elements. And we're also going to use some of that space to create an ADA-compliant bathroom. The restrooms right now are small, narrow, built a long time ago, and right now we want to expand them and make them ADA accessible. So that's really why we're here. Those are the two narrow de minimis areas where we're making modifications. And as Derek pointed out, there's really not a lot of space being used, but we trigger the variance because we're already over the variance.
Mr. DeGrazia, I don't want to interrupt you, but are you going to be presenting sworn testimony, confirming every set of...
Just my intro. Okay. And I'll end it, because I know the chairman's going to wag his head back and forth soon. So I will, with that, I'll bring up my first my first witness, Wayne Ingrams, who is a professional engineer and a professional planner, and we're presenting him as both engineer and planner this evening. Wayne, can you give us a little bit more about your...
Mr. Ingrams, before you start testifying, could you spell your last name for the record?
I-N-G-R-A-M.
All right, and if you would raise your right hand, you swear or affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful.
I do.
Thank you.
Can you give us a little bit background information on your education and your licensing?
Sure. I have degrees from Rutgers University in civil engineering and from NJIT in land surveying. I'm a licensed engineer, planner, and land surveyor in the state of New Jersey, practicing for over 12 years, and have been accepted in well over 50 municipalities in both capacities as planner and engineer.
We'd like to...
It's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so can you, I think Mr. Bridger went through and oriented the board to this site. Can you give us a little bit more of the background information and then talk about the variances?
Sure. I think the site's been pretty well described compared to what we're proposing. It's roughly a 22,000 and change square foot building located somewhat centrally on the site. 22,000, about 500 square feet in size, located centrally on the site. There are three parking areas. One is located to the west, is the largest and the main entrance to the building. And then there are two smaller parking lots located to the north, closer to the main road. Again, smaller parking lots. The one furthest to the east is the one that currently accesses what we consider the lower level of the building. What we consider the upper level is what's accessed from that western parking lot. Located all the way to the east, essentially along the property line, is a regulated water course. As was discussed, that was a 300-foot buffer on that water course, and that does envelop pretty much the entire property. The additions that are proposed are fairly minimal. We have the 750 square foot addition to the entry and vestibule, only about 500 of which is not already located over existing impervious surface, and those areas to be disturbed are essentially landscape areas in front of the building, which will be removed. And again, the interior addition to the courtyard is 301 square feet to be located wholly over the lower level story which currently exists. And again, that is for the access upgrades so that you can go between the two levels from within the building. Because the challenge right now is if you want to go to the lower level and you're in the main parking lot, you have to get into your car, drive back onto the street into the lower parking lot, exit, and then go back into that level. So very challenging, not compliant, and so we're attempting to improve those conditions. We do show two utilities to be replaced. We have an electric line which will be run underground, as well as a gas line. We are currently serviced by gas. However, contractors have indicated they may need to go out to the street to replace the connection. It may not be clearly visible at the distance you're at. However, the gas line clearly on that plan is shown to avoid any of the trees that are located in front of the property. And we certainly do understand the concern with removal of trees for the electric line. We took a look at it. We don't believe any trees will have to be removed. Based upon where the line currently is able to come down, we can basically run it right alongside the driveway where there are no trees. So I don't see us needing to remove any trees. However, we're certainly amenable to any conditions regarding consulting the municipality and its professionals with regard to that. So those are essentially the site plan changes that are proposed. We see no real impact to stormwater conditions because, again, nothing we're doing is going to alter the drainage pattern on the site, and we are talking about a fairly de minimis amount of impervious increase. It would probably be more destructive to try and figure out some way to do something there to mitigate stormwater in terms of disturbance than to just go with this plan. We also agree that we would have to obtain an NJDEP permit. Had we gotten in here a little sooner, that wouldn't have been necessary, but with recent law changes, there is a very simple permit that's now required, and we will certainly obtain that and provide evidence of that to the municipality.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes, can you talk to us? I just actually want to point out one thing, because it's very hard. I don't have the microphone. I'll speak loudly. On this second-story addition, it's very hard to see, but it's in the center of the building. The building line is actually way out here. Circles are
viewers?
circling the building now. Right here, it almost looks like this is outside. This is the outside of the building. This is the open courtyard that's staying the same. And this is the area that is getting that second floor. So it's completely enclosed. It looks a little hard on this plan because it's an aerial. Thank you, Wayne. Can you talk a little bit about the FAR variance?
Sure. We are here for D4 variance relief for the floor area ratio. We're currently exceeding the allowable at 12.9%, and we're proposing to go up to 13.5%. And I think was, as identified, our test here is not to prove site suitability, but simply that we can accommodate that FAR increase. I think the key component here is the FAR increase is not one that's going to increase the intensity of use of the site. The changes are basically for the ADA accessibility and for the energy upgrades that we're trying to make. So there's not really an intention here with an increase in FAR to bring a larger congregation or anything that's going to alter how this site operates. We'd note that we have 141 parking stalls, and based on the ordinance, 113 are required currently, and 118 will be required if this application is approved. So as you can see, we still have ample parking on the site. From a visual standpoint, as was just mentioned, the interior addition is simply going over an existing first floor, and it's completely interior to the building, so it wouldn't even be noticeable from anywhere outside the site. And the vestibule entry is the way it's oriented with regard to the site. Really, we don't see any real feasibility of anyone outside the site really even noticing the additions that are proposed. And again, it's taking place in an area that is currently trafficked, with concrete sidewalks leading into the building. So ultimately, it's not really going to have an impact on how the site is viewed from the outside. While churches are not deemed inherently beneficial, they are deemed to be inherently serving the public welfare. So we believe we satisfied the purpose of zoning A in that respect. Additionally, we believe that purpose B, securing fire, flood, panic, or other disasters by providing safe egress and access between the floors, is also furthered, as well as promoting a desirable visual environment, as we think the exterior upgrade to the vestibule will be an improvement to the site. And finally, purpose J, conservation of energy resources, again with our attempt here to provide a means to further conserve energy with this older building. I don't believe I've seen anything in the zone plan or master plan which this application is not generally in line with. I went through the master plan for purposes and goals today and found that it was really very in line with those purposes. And I certainly don't believe that there are any negative impacts from such a de minimis development based upon the reasons that we've presented.
And just to clarify, we don't have any changes to the parking lots or the surrounding grounds?
Not at all.
There's no traffic impacts, no increase in waste, and no changes in circulation?
None.
And as you said, the drainage patterns would be identical to as they are today?
Absolutely.
That's it. If you don't have any questions, we can move to our next witness.
Move to your next witness.
This is our architect, Ronica Breckenzer. State your name and I guess spell it for the record, and then we can have you sworn in. And
Ronica Breckenzer, Ronica Brecgenzer.
If you'd raise your right hand, do you swear affirm your testimony this evening will be truthful?
I do.
Thank you.
can you give us a brief outline of your qualifications?
Yes, I'm a graduate of the Catholic University in Washington, D.C., and I've been practicing in my own firm in Princeton on 8 Stockton Street for the past 26 years. I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey. And I do both commercial and residential work in Princeton, Hopewell, and elsewhere.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Why don't you take us through the elevations and the floor plans so the board can get a better idea of the proposal?
Do you want to use the portable microphone?
Sure.
That makes it easier for the tape recorder to get it.
I'm going to start up on the upper level, as we call it, which is the large parking lot, and how you would access that.
Ma'am,
So this will be A1 in your...
The A1.
and could we identify it further? It's A1, and what are you calling the drawing?
A1 is called Proposed Upper Level Plan. So from the parking lot, which will be about here, you walk in this existing walkway. Here's our new vestibule, the airlock, and then this is the new ADA bathrooms and additional bathrooms. So as you can see, the addition is basically sandwiched between the existing theater and the existing sanctuary. The landscaping in this area is basically unchanged. It's vinca now. We're going to plant some more vinca. Very simple, easy to maintain for the church. There's an existing sign here, which we'd like to move here, just so it's not behind the entry. The lighting is existing walkway lights, which we'd be reusing. The parking light lots are there already. We're reusing those. You now can walk in. The large area here is their existing Robinson Hall, which they use for gathering, dinners, place before church. The sanctuary is here. The theater is here. And back here, this is the addition that they keep talking about is over the first floor. There's the elevator to the lower level. As everyone said, right now you've got to walk all the way around. There is also a stair there to make it easier for everyone to get down to the lower level. The pastor, the offices at the lower level. That's basically it for the upper level. Exhibit 2 is called Proposed Lower Level Plan. So if you came down, there's your stair. There's your stair, there's your elevator. You're in a new library area for the church. This is the large courtyard. So really this addition back here can only be seen if you're in the courtyard. Here's the walkway to the other parking lot. We've approved access. There's 2 ways out of the lower level now. Everyone can access it. There's additional ramps inside, so it's now fully accessible. And there's also a couple other new bathrooms there.
The walkway to the parking lot has no steps on it?
This one does not, no.
No, only the other side does.
The other side you can walk in. The problem is once you're in
You
at
can't
that
get
upper
down.
level,
Yeah.
you have no way
No,
of
I
getting
understand.
down. And once you're down, you've got no way of getting up. In fact, down this level and this level are 2 steps off. We're fixing that as well. So this is a lot of ADA compliance. Because right now, if you're over here, if you come in this way, you still can't make it to the pastor. So he comes and sees you. But right now, and to the courtyard, if you're in a wheelchair, you can't get there either. Now you can. So you can now fully get everywhere, basically, in this building. On the roof plan, number 3, proposed roof. This just helps because it clearly shows the addition, some skylights, which wouldn't be visible from anywhere, but maybe a far distance away. That's allowing more light into the Robinson Lounge. New exhibit, it's an upper level, it's a little bit different than what you've seen. We just want to point out there's air conditioning units that would be here. You can see on your drawing there's a little square, but the HVAC didn't show up on the little square. So they're here. These are Sanyo units like you have in your house. The tallest one is 42, the shortest one is 24. They're more than 100 feet off the property line. The setback is 50 feet. Proposed elevations.
Well, let's mark that.
East and west.
What's the sheet for identification?
I lost.
A5?
We're on the 5th one.
Right.
This is the main entry now. Basically trying to blend in what was here, the original building, sanctuary, and this piece over here were built in 1955. The next addition, which connected all of this, was built in 1968. And other than adding solar panels, it really hasn't changed much. So we're trying to make a nod to the architecture that's here with sort of the sweep up to the sanctuary. Here's the doors where you would walk in. We're using stone, hopefully to match the stone that's here, and vertical siding, again, in keeping and blending with the existing building. The lights in the porch are covered by the porch, and again, because the addition is basically in a U, as far as light spillage, there really won't be any, other than a little bit to the walkway. This is the back. You can't even see the courtyard. This is the lower level. That's the addition on top. Again, you'd have to be quite far away to see any of that. Sections and elevations, number 6. They're standing in the courtyard looking at the 2 stories here, and there's the elevator shaft here. The side elevation, you can just see the top of the porch from this side, and these are the various small porch elevations, again, using the stone asphalt shingle roof like the main sanctuary has, trying to blend into the existing structure. Mainly, the whole focus of this was ADA compliance, additional bathrooms, making the building safer with more ways out of it. And, that's it.
Thank you.
I have a question about, I guess, the Robinson Lounge when you come in from the entry hall. In that area, I know the lounge is used a great deal. If you could just say how these changes would impact that area. I understand in terms of the bathrooms and the step down that would be an improvement, but in looking at this plan, I'm not sure what I'm looking at. You know, it's a proposed something, and then it just looks as though that lounge is going to lose space. And again, if you could just explain the impact to that area that's used so much with all of the changes.
And you're right, the lounge is used a lot, and
I'm sorry?
not just by church members. This is a really active church in all kinds of ways. So not only
Right.
is their community active, but they have lots of other groups. I think AA meets there, there's dance groups. It's a very active community involved.
So will that be the same size or expanded or?
No, it's the same size. This addition over the first floor is where that's pushing Robinson out by maybe 6 feet, and that's where the elevator and the stair are. So right now, Robinson ends here, and the addition is there. So
Okay,
it
good.
doesn't make it smaller. That's part of why the restrooms are not in the middle of Robinson. That's why they're in this addition to allow Robinson to maintain its size and use. And same with the vestibule, to have the airlock, and again, so that circulation in and out of the sanctuary to the theater and through Robinson is not disturbed.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. What size is the elevator?
It's a Lula elevator.
Oh, it is a Lula
It is
elevator,
a Lula,
okay.
partially for
Yeah, you re-
cost savings reasons, so we're at 1,400 pounds, and it's the
Okay.
largest Lula I can
fine.
get.
Have you, does this go to the state for a permit, or can the building department locally review it?
I have shown this to John Pettinotti and the entire crew, and John feels that they are able to review it, so I'll be asking for a return to local.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address this case? Would you do what you've seen others do and